kaupapa o te wāhi Māori. Ka tīmata i tō tātou hui, ai te karakia. A reira, kia hihiri tātou. Tūtawa mai runga, tūtawa mai raro, tūtawa mai roto, tūtawa mai waho. Kia tau ai, te mauritu, te mauriora, ki te katoa. Haumi e, hui e, tāiki.
Kia ora, Kiri, and thank you for opening up our session this afternoon, where we are hoping to bring to you today some information on the Māori wards and the decision that the Rotorua Lakes Council has in front of them to make by the 6th of September. Kia ora, my name is Una Hopkins, and today I'm going to take you through that information and have a look at the options that are now in front of Council. For those of you who are joining us through Teams today, we do have the option of, if a question comes up during the presentation, please feel free to use the chat and we'll look to answer those questions at the end of the presentation. If you are coming in on a different platform, please, we've got a couple of options there for you if you wish to put a question in. You can use the QR code that's on the screen with you now, or go to the link that's below that and put in a question there. So let's start by having a look at a bit of the background to Māori wards here in Rotorua. So Rotorua adopted the Māori ward in 2021, and that was under the then local electoral Māori wards and Māori constituencies Amendment Act 2021. At the time, that decision locked in Māori wards for the 2022 elections and the 2025 coming election. Following the establishment of the Māori ward, Rotorua Lakes Council then undertook their representation arrangements, which is a review they have to do every 6 years. And with the establishment of the Māori ward, it set the starting point for what that arrangements model might look like. At the end of that review, Rotorua Lakes Council had an arrangements model that consisted of a Māori ward that had 3 seats in it, a rural ward that had 1 seat, a general ward with 6 seats, and then of course a mayor who is elected at large, and that means by everybody in the district being able to vote for the position of mayor. So a decision following a representation review is set for 2 election cycles. So remember, that was the 2022 election and then the upcoming 2025 election. Why a decision is set for 2 election cycles is that it provides the opportunity for the council and the community to see the benefits of the representation model and see how that works and flows into decision making across the district. In turn, it also provides experience and learnings to take into subsequent representation reviews. So what have the council got in front of them at the moment? So there has been a new bill that has come into and has been passed, and that is the Electoral Legislation and Māori Wards and Māori Constituencies Amendment Bill. That has been passed. This bill reinstates the ability for binding polls on the establishment of Māori wards. And it also provides for a transitional poll mechanisms for councils that either resolved to establish or established Māori wards since 2020 without holding a poll. So that affects Rotorua Lakes, where we are in that position where we may need to go into this transitional poll area. This piece of legislation that has been passed has also brought about some adjustments to key election dates, and that's particularly around the delivery of voting papers and giving the opportunity for a longer period of time there so that people can ensure they get their voting papers and are able to vote and get their voting papers back in to be counted. So at the moment, what is the option that council have in front of them, and what are the decisions that they will need to make? The decision that councils have put in front of them is that they either need to agree to retain their Māori ward and go to a poll in 2025, or to reverse the Māori ward's decision. That decision needs to be made by the 6th of September, and Rotorua Lakes are looking to make that decision at their council meeting on the 28th of August. At this point in time, staff are preparing a recommendation report that will go to the council, and the agenda will be published on the 21st. So that's a week ahead of the actual decision-making meeting. And that staff recommendation is based upon Rotorua Lakes Council retaining the Māori ward and going to the poll in 2025. But what we're going to do now is actually take you through a bit of a decision-making tree so that you can see the options that are in front of the council and ultimately the decision that the council will need to make. As I said, the decision point is a legislative date that by the 6th of September, the council will need to make that decision. The two options that they have available to them is one, to retain the Māori ward and then go to a poll in 2025 elections, which the results of that will be binding. So that means that the result of that is that. So 50% of electors that vote either yes or no for the retaining of the Māori ward will determine whether that Māori ward is there going forward. The other decision that the council has in front of them is the option around disestablishing the Māori ward for the 2025 local elections and onwards. We're going to take a little bit of time just to have a look at the option around retaining the Māori ward and going to the binding poll. And as I just said, we believe that the question is going to be a relatively simple yes, no. Do you believe that Rotorua Lakes should continue its Māori ward or no? So if the answer to that binding poll is yes, then a representation will need to be undertaken. And the same is the case for even if that binding poll comes in and says that no, a Māori ward is not going to be part of the arrangements for Rotorua. So in both cases, Rotorua will need to go into its next representation review. And that gets undertaken in that 2027-28 calendar year. The results will be, so if the binding poll comes in and it is a yes, the Māori wards will be in place for the 2028 elections and the 2031. And then if the results of the binding poll is no, then Rotorua would have no Māori wards for at least the 28 and the 31 local elections. The other decision that is available to the council is to disestablish the Māori ward for the up and coming election in 2025. And taking a little bit of time just to go through that, if the council chose to disestablish its Māori ward for 25, it then has two subsequent decisions that it will need to make. The first one is that they could roll back to the previous representation arrangement, which was in 2019. And that was where all councils at that particular time were elected at large. So there were no wards at all. The other option is to undertake a shortened representation review. And there are challenges to both of these subsequent options. If we take a look at rolling back to the previous arrangements, as I just said, there would be no Māori wards for at least 25 election and 28. If you undertook a shortened representation review, again, there would still be no Māori wards, but there would for those 2 next election cycles as well. In the case of rolling back to a previous representation arrangement, if you disestablished the ward, and that would mean for 25 and 28 local elections, there would be no Māori ward. However, in this case, you would then undertake a representation review in the 2028 year. Under a shortened representation review, what it means is that you would do a representation review, you'd be working under that model for the 25 and 28 elections, and therefore the next time you would undertake a representation review would be in the 2030-31 calendar year. So that, in a nutshell, is the sort of the decisions that council have before them, and what I guess the impacts of each of those decisions will mean. And both of them do present a number of challenges for the council going forward. The timeline is probably one of the more significant parts of the challenges, is that the legislation does require that the council needs to make a decision on this by the 6th of September. And that first decision point is that councils either need to retain the Māori ward and proceed to the poll, or they need to disestablish the Māori ward. There's a subsequent key decision date, which is the 13th of September. Now, if the council did choose to disestablish their Māori ward and undertake a shortened representation review, the council would have to have prepared and adopted an initial representation model to go out for consultation by the 13th of September. So you can see that the time frame is really tight, and the time frame is one that has been put onto the council by the new bill, and the council does need to make that decision in order for themselves to comply with that new legislation. So that actually brings us to the end of the wee presentation and the information sharing that I had for today. Just to reiterate again, you have the opportunity there to send us a few questions in via the chat on this particular meeting. But if you haven't been able to come in through the Teams platform, then please feel free to use the QR code that's available there, or the link below. And any questions that we don't get to in the remainder of the session, we will post those up on our Let's Talk platform, so everybody will be able to see those questions as they come in. So, Kitty, I was just wondering if we had any questions that had come in. We might take a few of those now.
Yes, we have a question. So, will the public get a chance to have their say on Māori wards? And if so, when?
Very good question. So, the first opportunity that the community will get to have a conversation or to be consulted on in terms of Māori wards going forward will be dependent on the decision that this council makes on the 28th. If the council choose to retain the Māori ward and go to the poll, the biggest part of consultation will be through the lead up to the 2025 elections and that poll. If the council chooses to disestablish the Māori ward, then the council will need to go pretty promptly into engaging with the community around what does a representation arrangements look like for Rotorua going forward in a very constrained time frame.
And there was another question. So if a council holds a binding poll at the 2025 local elections and the result is to maintain or to resolve to establish Māori wards, are there any effects that we, the public, need to be aware of?
I think what that means is, so a binding poll sets the parameters or the starting point. So if the binding poll is for having a Māori ward, then that will be the starting point for the representation review, and that will kick off the way that next representation review will proceed. The same as for if the binding poll comes in to say no to a Māori ward, it will mean that there will be no Māori wards, and again it will set the way that the representation review goes. So it really becomes the starting point, one way or another, definitively, whether there's a ward or not for the next representation review cycle.
And there was a question, and I think it was more clarification. So the decision that is going to be made on the 28th of August this month, so the staff actually put through a recommendation. So, and that recommendation will be...
So, thank you, Kitty. Yes, so the council meeting on the 28th of August is going to have a staff recommendation going to council, and based on the lead up to this, the previous consultation that has already been undertaken, the council's commitment to 2 cycles and of seeing a representation model in practice, will be why the staff are recommending for council to retain the Māori ward and then go straight to and undertake the poll in the 2025 election cycle.
Thank you. Kia ora tātou, ko te āhua nei, ko pau te wā kia tātou. Nō reira, me mihi ka tika kia koutou kua hono mai i te ahi nei, ki te whakaunga kōrero e pāna ki te wāri Māori. So thank you for those that have joined this afternoon, evening. Hei whakakapi. Tō tātou hui, I runga I te karakia, nō reira a kia hihiri tātou. Kia whakairi a te tapu, kia wā te ai te ara, e tūru ki whakatai, hau ie, hui ie, tai ki e. Kia ora tātou.
Kia ora.